For decades, one empire ruled the Mediterranean. No one could challenge it, no one could stop it, until Europe finally decided to fight back. In the 16th century, the Mediterranean Sea was under the control of the powerful Ottoman Empire. Their navy dominated trade routes, coastal cities, and key islands. Wherever their ships sailed, they brought fear and authority. This control was not built overnight. It came through years of expansion, discipline, and naval strength. Their commanders were experienced, their sailors skilled, and their strategy unmatched. Then came Cyprus, a wealthy and strategically important island controlled by Venice. When the Ottomans invaded and captured it, the message was clear: no territory was safe. This was more than conquest. It was a warning: if nothing was done, the Ottomans could dominate the entire Mediterranean, and possibly move further into Europe. For the first time in years, European powers set aside their differences. Spain, Venice, and the Papal States formed an alliance known as the Holy League. But unity needed leadership. They chose Don John of Austria, young, ambitious, and determined to prove himself. He knew the challenge: hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers, and nowhere to escape. This wasn't just a battle, this was war on water. On October 7, 1571, the fleets met in the Gulf of Patras. The sea was calm, but the tension was overwhelming. On one side stood the Ottoman fleet, led by Ali Pasha. Confident and experienced, they believed victory was certain. They had ruled these waters for decades. On the other side was the Holy League, led by Don John. Determined, but facing a powerful and tested enemy, the battle began with thunder. Cannons roared across the sea, echoing in every direction. Ships moved forward and collided. Soldiers jumped from one vessel to another, turning the decks into brutal fighting grounds. Gunfire, steel, and fire filled the air. This was no distant naval fight, it was close, chaotic, and deadly. At the center, the most intense clash took place. Don John's flagship moved directly toward Ali Pasha's ship. The battle between these two forces became the heart of the conflict. For hours, both sides fought without stopping, but slowly, something began to change. The Ottoman formation started to weaken, their ships lost coordination, their lines were beginning to break. Battles don't always end slowly, sometimes, everything changes in a single moment. At Lepanto, that moment had arrived. For hours, the sea had been filled with fire, smoke, and chaos. Ships were locked together, soldiers fighting hand to hand, cannons roaring without pause. Neither side was willing to give up, but deep in the center of the battlefield, everything depended on one fight: the flagship of Ali Pasha and the fleet of Don John of Austria were locked in direct confrontation. This was no longer just a naval engagement, it was the heart of the war. Wave after wave of attacks struck Ali Pasha's ship. Arrows, gunfire, and soldiers poured onto the deck. The fighting was brutal, close, and relentless. And then, it happened. Ali Pasha was killed, his flagship was captured, and in that instant, the entire Ottoman fleet felt the shock, because in battles like this, leadership is everything. Without command, confusion spreads faster than fire. Signals stopped, orders disappeared, coordination collapsed. Some Ottoman ships tried to fight on, unaware of what had happened. Others began to pull back, sensing the danger, but it was too late. The formation had broken, and the Holy League saw it immediately. They pushed forward with full force, stronger, faster, relentless. Ottoman ships were surrounded from multiple sides. Some were captured, others burned, and many simply sank beneath the waves. The sea itself seemed to turn against them. What had once been the most feared navy in the Mediterranean was now falling apart in front of everyone. By the end of the day, the scale of defeat was clear. Over 200 Ottoman ships were lost, thousands of soldiers were killed, thousands more were taken prisoner. The water that once carried an empire's power now its defeat. The Battle of Lepanto became a turning point in history. It ended the myth of Ottoman invincibility at sea, it shifted the balance of power, and it gave Europe something it had lost for years: confidence. Because Lepanto proved one thing beyond doubt: no empire, no matter how powerful, is ever truly unstoppable.